let's say in India, where Nada Brahma is still practiced. Now, Nada Brahma is the Indian spiritual tradition of music, dance, movement. It's all combined. Dance is music there. That tradition is still alive in some sectors, although it's becoming kind of inundated by the Western influence of, pop and all the rest of it, electronica. But the point is, that tradition has within it the purpose, the principle of guiding the consciousness through practice of the instrument, through practice of mastering that instrument, till one is virtuosic, the first level. The first level is virtuosity of the instrument. The second level is virtuosity of oneself, the mastery of oneself. And then finally, once one has arrived at that mastery of instrument and oneself, then one can be of real service. In other words, one can then give it back. One can be conscious and give back that consciousness and know that it will evoke the same response in the audience that listens to it, that hears it. And of course, the audience has an obligation as well. A real audience doesn't fall asleep. A real audience doesn't, get distracted and dibble-dabble and chatter. They help the musician to focus all their force, all their attention on a real and conscious impulse. And usually, when a conscious music performance is initiated or begun or presented, it isn't really a performance. It's actually a living spiritual practice that everyone, including the audience, participates in. It's not just for entertainment. It's never for entertainment, as a matter of fact. And so when a conscious music performance begins, it becomes kind of like a sacred invocational space where the audience is not a passive component but an active component, in the sense that the more the audience opens up to conscious impulses, the more the player will then move into those realms and sort of co-creatively generate a new form of energy, a new form of perception, a new form of being while in that. And that, in essence, was what conscious music, when it started, was all about, what it was attempting to do. It was attempting to take the conscious force that the shaman had and then transfer it to the entire group. So that it wasn't just that one individual was enlightened or awake and everyone was half asleep. It was that everyone would participate in that and then become part of that living awakeness, that living consciousness that would then be able to transform and generate a totally different kind of reality, a totally different kind of life that people could live, and not just do it momentarily but all the time. So that was and is still the intention and aim of conscious music. So that, in a nutshell, is sort of the presentation about it, the things that we can talk about. I can talk about, as soon as these folks show up, I can talk about the music of Lubomyr Melnyk and Deborah Judith for a little bit, because I think they'll probably be playing a lot more than talking. So I'll do the talking at the moment. Lubomyr Melnyk, if any of you have heard him or known about him, is probably one of the greatest pianists on the planet today. No question. No question. He's generated a totally different form of piano playing, of music, that's known as continuous music. Now, the reason it's called continuous music is that it has no breaks in it. It continues relentlessly, like a river, like a rushing river, and multiple rivers rushing together. he's considered one of the fastest pianists in the world. Actually, he's considered the fastest pianist in the world as well. Think about it, in this restaurant, here, tonight. But there's a reason for that, too. It wasn't based on the fact that Lubomyr wanted to be the fastest pianist. It was that the music that he was working on, that was being created, and that was kind of directing the focus of his attention and work, required super speeds in order to arrive at the effects. So these effects that continuous music generates, now I'm not sure if you'll be able to really get the full impact on a keyboard, which, you know, hopefully it'll be something great, but on a grand piano, that's where it really becomes evident because of all the overtones, undertones, harmonics, subharmonics as they blend and reblend. They produce, you might say, secondary but important melodic structure to the primary melodic structure, if you can understand that. Or I explained it correctly. There's a primary set of notes that are played. They generate harmonics. When these harmonics blend and cancel and blend and cancel over and over again, they sometimes, if you play the piece fast enough, will create overtones. These overtones then blend and create other, you might say, noticeable notes. And those notes then become part of the melodic structure. So the harmonic notes become part of the primary note structure. It's quite unique, it's amazing, and nobody else can do it. Nobody else has done it, unfortunately. But then you're hearing something that's like pioneer, really cutting-edge work. And anyone who's had the experience of being in a concert with Lubomyr and also Deborah Judith knows that something different happens when they play. So that's Lubomyr. Deborah Judith, on the other hand, is, not on the other hand, but in a parallel way, has been working on her own music, but she basically plays directly from a moment. She's an incredibly gifted pianist, and I hear her practice all the time, but she never plays the same piece twice, and she never plays a piece before she performs it. She always performs in the moment, which is, you know, you can imagine is extremely difficult to just suddenly create a piece, and usually a masterpiece, on the spot. But that's how Deborah does it. You know, her work is a little bit more what would be called neo-impressionistic. It can be slow, it can be fast, it can be arranging in all sorts of different stylistic ways, but at the source of it is always an essential kind of impulse, sort of a directive toward a conscious awakening in her music. So Deborah Judith and Lubomyr Melnyk, when they got together a few years ago, about 4 years ago, were kind of doing parallel work with their music work. And so when they finally got together, the collaboration was truly extraordinary. And so I'm very pleased that tonight you'll be able to hear them as soon as they get here. But in the meantime, having said all I've said, you know, I know we're supposed to do questions at the end, but is there anything I've said right now that I could elaborate on, that you'd like to hear more about or have explained, or just go ahead. You can talk now. You don't have to wait till the end.